it's great to have a scene where all walks of life, all different like faiths and all that still come together for deathcore. Whether it be a Christian deathcore band or not, there's still that intermingling of believers who still listen to Suicide Silence that they love unanswered for some odd reason. Like myself, that song bangs. I don't care about the lyrics. Like the intermingling of all that business just for the sake of music, it's what makes music so powerful.
Real quick before we start, I just wanted to mention that we do these podcast recordings live on Twitch. It's kind of a cool way for you guys to be a part of the conversation, as well as see the behind the scenes and the uncut versions of these episodes. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribing, leaving a comment, liking the video, all that stuff goes a long way. Same goes for leaving a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We have a striving community on Discord if you want to chat with other like-minded deathcore enjoyers, as well as just staying up to date with everything that's going on with the podcast. Last but not least, if you want to support the podcast, I'll be leaving a link down in the description wherever you are watching or listening on how you can do so, as well as links to everything else that I just talked about. With that out of the way, enjoy this episode. We have the pleasure today of being with Dane and Joshua of Heavyhitter. They have a lot of cool stuff that's been happening this week, specifically new song, label. You guys are hopping on a really fucking badass tour shortly as well. So we gotta talk about all of it. But first, how are we doing, guys? Do you mind maybe introducing yourselves for maybe some of the audio listeners that wouldn't see your faces right now?
I'm Josh Archeval. I'm the drummer for Heavyhitter. I've been doing all right. Had a quite tumultuous day already, even aside from any delays and difficulties. Apologize for it. Otherwise, I'm here now. We're ready to do this, man. It's gonna be real fun to talk about anything.
Hell yeah! And Dane, how you doing? How you holding up?
I'm doing good, man. I'm Dane. I play guitar for Heavyhitter. Super stoked to be here. A little tired, but can't complain.
Yeah, I think that's a running theme for the four of us today. I think a few of us are running on low sleep today. I'd love to dig into maybe some of the newer stuff first while we're kind of on the subject. You guys just put out a brand new song called No Mercy, No Remorse a few days ago. I personally fucking love it. It's really, really fucking awesome. Music video is cool too. How's it been for you guys to put out this single? I know you guys have, put out a few singles over the past few years with kind of the new lineup and whatnot, but how's it been putting this one as the first for the upcoming EP?
Seeing this reception that we were getting, even only 3 days into the release, is beyond astounding. We keep looking at the little milestones, the big pushes on whether it be playlists, articles, publishing or posting about our new single, the whole tour, just getting everything in motion. It's as gratifying as ever can be. We took a lot out of a bunch of different influences for it. We could get into all that business later. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, very, very happy with how people like it. It's just straight away a breakdown. You can mosh to it. The blast beats, everything else in between. It's a work I take a lot of pride in. Y'all will like the next single even more so. This is my personal favorite.
All right. How are you feeling about it, Dane?
The response we've got, in the last 2 days, it never ceases to amaze me how many people hear something I've created and have a positive, effect on, because it's like, I don't see that side a lot being the musician, and it's really makes me feel good about putting out music that affects people in a positive way, regardless of obviously the lyrics are, edgy or whatever and brutal, but it kind of releases like a sort of catharsis, you know?
Right. And then how so this is the first single, as you mentioned, off the upcoming EP. You guys are dropping an EP, what is it? Early November, kind of like smack when you guys are on tour, right?
Yeah, it'll be right as the tour ends, I think.
Oh, right. It's right after the tour.
Yeah, right when we get back.
Should be November 8th we release it.
Cool. And then talk to me about the tour a little bit, because that's a pretty wild lineup. You guys are going out with Carnifex, Cryptopsy, Organectomy, Mental Cruelty on that bill too. Like, that's a stacked lineup. And for you guys, I know I was kind of looking into it. You guys have done some runs here and there, but never. This is your first full US. Am I correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
So how's it feel for you guys to be, finally doing the full US, but on top of that, it's not like a shitty DIY run where it's like a big leagues tour, with some really cool bands. How'd the tour come about, and how do you guys feel about it going into it?
With it being a big league tour, I had all the confidence in the world that we'd get something down the line, especially with the entire deal with my last project. If anybody isn't aware, I was drumming for Tactosa. We were supposed to go on tour with Dying Fetus last fall for that to be dropped. I had no problem with it being dropped. I made the best decision I could in stepping down from that project. And here I am doing much bigger, much better things with my boys in Heavy Hitter now. When we got the official announcement and the email, we thought this was a joke. This was by means of Austin. Scott Ian Lewis, the vocalist of Carnifex, he was one to like our posts, comment on our reels, on all our memes, our own videos of performances. And somebody commented on a reel, yo, y'all should tour at Carnifex. That would be fucking sick. And Austin replied to that, tagging Scott, I believe, like, hey, let's make something happen. Scott Ian Lewis replies back saying, like, hey, let me get in touch with my people. Get in touch with your people. Let's see what we can do. And they gave us the most stacked death metal tour of the year with bands I've seen before. One of the most legendary death metal acts of all time, as well as one of the most legendary deathcore acts of all time in Carnifex.
It's the coolest thing because can you hear me right? I think it's the first time for once I could shut up for a while just listen. Scott, I and I could be wrong, but like after he worked so freaking hard with Carnifex, in the first days of deathcore and stuff like that. So I feel like this dude is such like he's so happy to be in a position in which he can help and give, and it's so clear that he's doing that now. And the beautiful thing is he doesn't have to do it, right? Like he doesn't owe anyone anything, and you can tell that after all those years, super passionate, like he's stoked about it. I'm sure he's super excited about the tour and stuff like that. I think these people are what makes a big difference, and can change your career entirely as well. So I just wanted to bring that up. I think it's awesome that he did that.
Yeah, I completely agree. Scott's doing a huge favor to us, but also like to the metal community as a whole. Because he put this tour together. I don't think he used like a booking agent or anything like that. It was just all through him.
Oh yeah,
so,
just
incredible.
Kind of handpicked tour from start to finish.
And we're just honored to be on this, to be playing next to such legendary bands, and it's a dream come true and a blessing for sure.
Plus, that he likes what you guys are doing, which is a big compliment on top of everything.
Absolutely.
So, awesome.
That's cool, man. And then you guys also announced signing to Blue Grape Music, which I wasn't familiar with when I first saw it. But they've got some cool bands like Gel and Code Orange and stuff. So how'd that come about? They're kind of an offshoot of people that were at Roadrunner before, from what I understand. How'd that kind of all come together for you guys?
I believe he emailed us. And Austin told us about it. But I know he worked as A&R for Roadrunner for like 25 years. signed Slipknot, signed Turnstile. I believe he's still the A&R for Turnstile. And he just loves our material and really put some faith into us to get this done. And we really get along well with him. But yeah, we went through a whole 2-month process of negotiations and whatnot.
Yeah, this was something that was in the works for a while, I assume. Yeah.
Yeah, it was even going on before I had joined in February. All the negotiations and talks. I was very, of course, honored to be welcomed as the new drummer, but getting into the fold involving, record label talks and all that other business, it was very easy flowing, more so minimal for me, but just having an understanding of, hey, we're about to make this major league jump. We need you aboard, and committing to what we're doing here. It felt very, very easy. I can't complain about it all. I'm very grateful to our guy David Rath, who's getting everything situated for us, especially all the connections that we've had over the years, even before we were signed, because people were gaining notoriety of our name through our LCY videos and all the other sort.
Yeah. That's cool. And then so you guys are putting out Moments of Misery on November 8th, and you guys went with Austin Coop, right, to do the record.
Yep.
Which is kind of ironic, I guess, because he's out in LA now, but he didn't used to. He was a lot closer to you guys prior, right?
Yeah.
You guys decided to. I'm assuming. I mean, he he's a big part of the Florida scene as a whole. I'm assuming you guys already knew him from prior before working with him.
He actually did Paved in Blood for us.
Okay.
That was how we kind of got our in with him. And then that's when he lived in Florida. Then he moved over to LA, and then, bing, bang, boom, we go to LA and record.
Yeah. So how long were you guys out in LA to record?
2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And then what was the decision with going with Austin, even though he moved out to LA? Like you guys enjoyed the original mix on Paved in Blood?
Yeah. It's a no-brainer for us.
Oh yeah, he offers premier production quality. This goes beyond Paved in Blood, and this goes beyond that.
He's done a bunch of crazy good production for bands.
Oh,
all
absolutely.
Over,
He recorded all of Tactosa's material before everything happened. So that's my biggest token of appreciation for his work, and them knowing they wanted to jump straight to Austin Coop for the new EP. I was absolutely on board. I couldn't see myself go to anybody else. He's one person to, record your band and feel like a member of it. Dane said this plenty of times before. It's an amazing thing how he dives into what a band has and what he can do to improve, whether in songwriting or structuring, to just adding any bit of pizzazz to any given song that needs to be finished or polished to make it what it is. I hearing what we have now of all of these songs, I can't believe is completely different from what we came in with. It's a completely different product. It's a completely different band almost compared to what we had previously.
I think it's smart to keep because I see it as a band is kind of when you have your sound, when you find what you need, it's kind of a formula type thing, and the producers definitely, if not the major part of it, a super big part of it. That's something that people often don't know. They think that you would, but you guys, that's a reality. You would change producers, and it would affect definitely the outcome. As much as you're good, it could be awesome still. It just mean it would still not be the same exactly. So I feel like if you feel something, if there's something special there, and it feels like he's in the band, no matter where he is in the world, it's smart to keep going with
Absolutely.
A big part like that. So.
Even with his work with touring with Adalia, he was in the metalcore band that toured with all the deathcore bands.
Yeah.
He's one of very few and very, very good producers that know MySpace deathcore better than anybody else on the planet, because he's toured with those bands. You can the list can be so long, but like, just to throw one name out, I remember him mentioning he went on tour with Float Face Down, and I was like, dude, I freaking love that band. There's no way. How did you do that? I was like, oh, dude, we just grinded it out. It was just a bunch of grinding. Bro, like, dropped out of school, I'm pretty sure, to tour or something like that. Yeah. I can't imagine what touring back in that prime era was like.
I'm just yeah, definitely, and I'm just curious for you guys. Like, is he the kind of producer who kind of challenge you, like just to push yourself and be better on everything? Is he that kind of producer when you record?
Yes, but like not in like an aggressive way. He's gentle. He's like,
okay.
He makes you want to be better. It's not. Okay. It's not like, oh, you need to push yourself. It's like I think you could have played that better, or whatever the thing is. It's like when I go to Austin, I want to make sure that I'm on my best, playing or whatever, because he just brings that out of me, wanting to be that much better.
I like that personally, because I don't know if you guys can relate on that, but it feels like by yourself, it's like we have our comfort zones, right? Like, you're gonna you have your go-to, your riffs, whatever your instrument is, that you're kind of naturally going back to it. So having someone who kind of looks at you and like, I think you can pull it off, like, especially because I feel like you guys are trusting him like 2000%, right? Like, no matter what, you're gonna be like, yeah, I'm listening to him. So I feel like it can definitely be a game changer, not only for the band, but I feel like as an evolution for each member. Do you feel like that's the case? And
100%.
With him? Okay,
absolutely. Yeah. He's made me 10 times the guitar player I was. Just little. It's like little nuances that he's like, hey, like, play it like this, or you're pressing too hard on that fret, or whatever it is. And he does it in such a gentle way that it's almost like a brother, essentially. I love Austin.
Best of both worlds, really. Like, it's kind of okay.
Well,
it's awesome.
I was
sorry for all the question. I love that stuff, like the behind the scenes stuff that make, like, you see the result, people see the result, but if they would only see all those small details and the people behind the scenes spending hours on all, like, sometimes on a little part, like a small freaking little transition, but it changed the whole sound. Yeah. So I love knowing about these things.
No, well, I was actually listening to a podcast with Austin, I think like a week ago. It just kind of happens. And he was also talking about how he kind of looks at every project and as like I don't know. He was talking about the fact that he stopped kind of caring about the technical and just really tried to hone in on the vibe when it comes to producing and how his mixes sound. And that the second he started focusing on vibe, that's when he started getting more clients and people started to take notice. And I think that goes to show with what you were saying, kind of like, taking your sound, but trying to make it just that sound, but the best it can be, like just kind of really going for a vibe. You're talking about the MySpace deathcore. I know, like, this new single you guys put out, it has like a bit more of a grindy MySpacey kind of blast beat riff in there that wasn't necessarily something we had really seen on previous material and stuff like that. And Josh sent me the EP a couple of weeks ago, and listening through it, there's some other bits like that too. A lot of that kind of MySpace influence seeping in here and there. So it's absolutely, it's cool to hear. Where do you guys, because you mentioned like Float Face Down and stuff like that, where do you guys land on MySpace deathcore and that kind of era of deathcore, in terms of like bands you enjoyed or what you guys thought was cool from that era and that music? What do you guys kind of draw inspiration from?
I can't speak on whether or not Contagion by Oceano was written in the MySpace era, but I do want to peep your little poster that Yan has in the back. It's probably my all-time favorite deathcore record. Oceano's my favorite deathcore band, I must say as well. If not that, I definitely was big on the Cleansing era, Suicide Silence, not too much on like other earlier acts of deathcore, like As Blood Runs Black and the sort. I was just kind of going along with the times. I think it was right around the time that like Tactosa was blowing up. I started really getting into like what the real influences for everybody and every other band that was taking on the MySpace sound, to go back in time and check out those bands that I missed when I started getting into deathcore.
Having Zach on that last track was kind of a testament to that, right? From Elysia.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. I think with a lot of structuring, I tend to, at least I should speak on the EP. With this EP, I tended to take a bit out of the textbooks of the like old Oceano sound with those blast beats and just how like bouncy mosh part breakdowns, as well as the more modern take on deathcore. I would also say I took out a bit of the Body Snatcher textbook. I really love how they structure verses, big fills to go into, you know, a repeating section into a crushing breakdown. So those were my two biggest influences in terms of coming up with parts for this EP. We do write live. So I came in with upon starting to write the new material, knowing the things I like about deathcore, everybody else liked as well. It was a band that wasn't so technical, really cared about the vibe and the parts necessary to make the vibe as tasteful as possible. Maybe, of course, a little bit of technicality here and there, but vibe goes well above any kind of technicality for the record.
There's got to be an ass beater.
Yeah.
I love hearing that. I call it style. I don't know if it makes sense, but like, you know, you can be very technical, but you can also make a choice. Maybe do something more simple, but if it works better and it suits with, who cares, you know? Like it's not like you listen to a song and it's like, it's very good, but should be more technical. Like I feel like the vibe, you need to get it, and I call it style. You know, you see these drummers sometimes, and it's not like the part, it might be not so difficult to play, but it's just perfect. It's just so well timed, and so like the artistic choices and it just makes sense. So that's kind of how I see it on those things. It's not only about technicality. That's not all there is to it.
I always say it. Like I'm a sucker for technicality. I mean,
me too.
Theoretically,
absolutely.
But there is something about like something simpler and that allowing people to go crazy on stage also. And I think that's especially true for drummers. Like drummers going all out on a good ass fucking breakdown or a half beat or two step or whatever. Like I will enjoy that so much more than like someone who's just blast beating so fast that they can't fucking move, you know, that they're just kind of stuck in the motion, you know? So I think that's kind of part of your guys' sound, you know, like I feel like listening to it, I feel like it's kind of made for the live show. Is that correct? Would I be correct in saying that?
I'd say
there's no doubt about it. I used to be one to, you know, hit a stick flip every once in a while at a show, but now with my mentality towards playing drums live or in the studio, I got to shout out Austin as well as Hunter Young. I would not be the drummer I am without those two producers giving me the best criticism possible on playing. Just to, you can be extravagant on the kit without having to do stick flips and twirls all over the place, or like cross sticking. Literally just hitting that damn drummer cymbal as hard as you humanly can, even up to failure, and making sure you hit that rim shot is well enough to have a good visual performance, and already a good sonic performance in the eyes of the audience.
Right, well, you hear that too, right? Like a drummer that's banging on his drums, like you can tell the difference, you know, on recording and live, you know.
We'll be doing a sound check before we play, and he's hitting his snare so hard I have to cover my ears because it hurts.
It's no joke. It's no joke. It's a great sign.
You got a backup snare just in case?
No, I haven't changed my head since the Tactosa recordings. It's that durable.
Wow.
I was gonna say it's more
war.
expensive to hit hard, but I guess for some people it isn't. I guess
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, and you talked about Hunter. I have this theory that he's not even human. Like I don't understand how someone that anything he's part of turns out completely amazing.
Everything he touches is gold. There's no doubt about it.
You
happy
right now,
birthday,
you
Hunter!
there's a new
It's
project.
fucking birthday today. Happy birthday, my man.
Oh,
Yes,
wow.
happy birthday, Hunter Young.
Oh
I
shit!
forgot
Happy
about
birthday!
that.
I didn't know. Happy birthday, dude. Yeah, like I mean, we cannot shut up about Psycho Frame because it's just like so fucking like incredible,
It's unreal,
incredible. But like now, to me, to be sold on a project, just tell me Hunter worked on it or is a part of it, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna like it. It's gonna be good. So
even in Psycho Frame, with his band being super technical, there's still such a good vibe of it being the most undeniably heavy deathcore you've ever heard in your life. And that I don't know how he does it, because there's few bands out there that just make the technicality like its main thing. There's few bands that have that technicality, and once they start playing the mosh parts, once they start playing the little skank beats at like 200 BPM or whatever it is, the intensity is still so high. It's not a matter of like I wish I could explain it. There's just some genius of like cosmic proportions I can't explain about Hunter Young.
No, but I completely get it. And by the way, the next, without spoiling anything, Dom basically showed me your next material, right? Because you sent it to him, so I did. And the first thing he said is, it's exactly what you like, my friend. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna listen to it. And my favorite thing is the fact, like one of my favorite thing is I love hardcore and deathcore, like we were talking about Buddy Snatcher and stuff like that. Like to me, the two steps, everything, like the anger behind is my favorite thing out of everything. And you really capture that like 1,000 freaking %. Like I feel like the hardcore roots is completely engraved in what you guys are doing. I'm just curious to know if it's kind of like all the band that feels this way, that like the hardcore needs to like be a good part. Is it coming from like specifically certain people within the band? I'm curious about that.
I think our main goal is not necessarily like stick to one genre, but we want to keep what makes heavy. So we started as like beatdown-ish, whatever, but we also wanted to incorporate the deathcore into it, but also not lose the sound of what makes us. So I find it really hard to like in us in a genre, really, because we jump from, we'll go down tempo, we'll go deathcore, we'll go hardcore, go two-step, and we have, I think, a different, like just a versatility that some people kind of lack these days. And I'm not like speaking in specifics. It's just it feels like everyone's like just trying to pump out everything so fast, and it kind of loses the soul of it and the heart of it.
Oh yeah.
I think that's what we try to keep in heavy is the pieces of us, of each member, and what makes it.
Oh, you definitely did it though. If you can, from an outside perspective, like the first thing I told you is that it's cool because even if you're in your death part, I kind of still felt the hardcore anger behind it in the deathcore, which is just something very difficult to do, especially when you get a little bit technical and that, like it's very easy to kind of lose that, but you keep kind of this the word is like really intense. It's like super like crazy and intense, and you keep that anger hardcore roots in between. So you definitely succeeded to like you keep the essence of what you guys were doing while exploring on it. So I'm not surprised that it's doing well, and I feel like it's in November, right? So it's pretty soon. Yeah. So I'm positive that the reception is going to be good.
That's means the world to us.
You're welcome. Of course. No, I was amazed. Like because he knows me, dumb. Like every time he knows what I like, so he's just like, you're gonna like. I don't know if you guys remember stuff like Jerome and like Demolisher. Those are my favorite freaking thing.
I hopped on Jerome very, very late. I'm still new to that. I need to hop on that. Like,
look, people are discovering Jerome in 2024, and that's okay, man. Yeah. Just the more people that know, the better. Whenever they come, it's chill.
For real.
It's so sick. And I think it's also a good example of a drummer like having style and just like keeping it simple in some parts, but perfect and well executed. I feel like I feel like Jerome is a good example.
A lot of those more kind of hardcore focused bands, I think from back in the day, Monsters was another great example of that. Like, I feel with a lot of the, I guess the bouncier, like more hardcore focused deathcore, down tempo also to a certain extent. Like there's more room for like that pocket, like for the I don't know, for like an actual groove to kick in, for like the I don't know, to kind of play around the tempo. I don't know. I think a lot of players shine through that sort of music, even if it's simpler, you know.
Yeah, there's got to be itches to scratch.
Yeah.
I think influences aside, no matter how many people I can name that shape who I am, I think the ultimate goal above all else in writing deathcore is to write music that scratches every itch possible for every listener. Whether they want a tad of technicality, they want the bouncy breakdowns, they want the two steps because they love the hardcore. I'm very much a hardcore guy myself. Like it's all about knowing what you like, listening to what you like.
Yeah, exactly. And it's something you feel, right? Like personally, the way I am is like, I want a bit like new metal type thing, but like I love what my head is just, you cannot go wrong if you see people just enjoying and like going like that, right? Because and I feel like that's what deathcore has, as opposed to if you go more in other kinds of metal, it's a bit more just, fast, technical. And it's just like, and I've seen people live, and believe me, the audience just don't know what to do during those parts. It's not that it's not good, but if the whole time it's just, it's cool. But like those parts, when they hit like Body Snatcher, things like that just goes like a super good two-step. Even a person that never in their life went to a metal show are going to be just,
they're going to vibe. Yeah.
So I feel like there's magic in that. Like, and again, the other parts hit more because of it. Cause you're like that. So when you arrive at a freaking breakdown or another blast beat, it's just like, it hits differently, creates contrast that I feel like deathcore is pretty unique on that. It's not something we see a lot in other kinds of metal. It's not as, there's no rules or whatever. It's just like, let's throw what we feel all together and make it work. So I feel that's what deathcore is.
I'd be curious to know. Go for it, Josh.
I feel like bands way back when, before, or I guess if there was a time when structuring a song wasn't so big, I feel like that was the only thing bands did. They just bounce ideas off each other, and it may be the only idea a member may have. For better
or for worse,
they
right?
somehow try to make it work.
For some bands it worked, for others maybe it didn't, but I think that definitely was kind of, I think, a part of the essence, of especially that early deathcore stuff. We always talk about this. It was very youthful, right? I think there was like this youthful ignorance to like, I'm just not being seasoned songwriters, but still making stuff that connects because it's just interesting. Ultimately, it was unpredictable, and that was something that people resonated with. Like, it didn't have to, come from a structured point. People were specifically looking for the opposite. So it's always interesting especially to look back on. I'd be curious because you guys touched on writing in person, right? You guys write all together.
Yep.
I'd be curious to have you guys maybe touch on that a little bit, because I feel like, especially in this day and age, that's kind of like few and far between now. You know, there's definitely more people writing on the computer now than and like solo songwriters that happen to have a band that play the stuff live afterwards than people actually jamming in the room. Can you guys kind of speak to, I guess, the why and how that kind of shakes up for you guys?
Dane, I think you've done this way longer than I have writing live. I think you should take this one.
Yeah, just going back onto like what makes heavy hitter, it really adds to the sound of making it sound organic, because we're sitting there and it's like we could play something and we're like, no, that's not it. We're not going to do that, because all of us will not feel like that click. Mm-hmm. And there's like, for me, there's like no greater feeling that when we write something and it just hits and we're just like, oh yeah, this is it. And then we'll take that one piece and we'll expand upon it. And we it's kind of like playing musical Tetris. And it gives just like a sense of like soul to the music, in my opinion, you know. And nothing against people who write on their computers and do it by themselves, you know. That's great. I can't do that. I don't know how to do that.
I would love to do that, but I have no means of doing that.
And it feels better, in my opinion, to get with the boys, lock in, and just pump out music.
Do you guys always have to like be fully on board, like everyone on board for something to pass through, or does it sometimes be like, oh, people are going to come around to it later, or like how does it work?
I would definitely not say so. There would be moments in, you know, anybody having a riff idea or a drum part that a few people would like, but the one member that would disagree would stand very defiant in not wanting it. So we would often, with possibly no other option, really have to compromise. It's okay for bands to compromise. If it comes at the sacrifice of a part sounding really, really good, if it has to be something less than, but for it to be for like the greater good of the band, whether it be individual chemistry in the sort, make it happen.
The single that dropped is a good example of this, right? Yeah. So the intro riff is the way it's played. It's played on correct me if I'm wrong, Josh. It's played on the and of the one.
Yeah, when it repeats after the first repetition. Yeah.
Originally, we were just going to play it on the one, and you know, da 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 da. And Josh was like, hold up, what if we did it like this? And I couldn't play it for like the life of me.
It hits so hard though. Like I think that kind of makes the riff, right?
Exactly.
Oh, absolutely. Because people are going to expect that riff to come on when your head bangs down, but then the toms come up on the upbeat, and then you're like, whoa, this is going to groove a little bit harder than what we normally would expect here.
And I butted my head against that idea for like a month. And then it finally clicked, and I once I got the hang of it, and I'm like, oh, whoa, wait a second, this is huge.
Yeah, you almost can't remember a time where you played it another way, right? You're like, no, this makes too much sense.
Exactly. So that's just an example of that.
A similar deal would be when the chorus repeats at the end, and there's that big when Austin screams like "in your eyes." I had initially wrote like a super nasty fill on that part. Obviously, it's not in the song. Austin was very defiant in not being a fan of the fill. Only until now, and having listened to it so many times, I understand why he's so heavy, or the band as a whole, on vibes rather than technicality. Because I could play that fill live if ever. But it might not, that chorus repeating that second time might not hit the same because of that pause. With that fill that I had initially wrote, there's no pause in between it. Yeah, we need things to hit harder the second time.
I feel like it's the tough part as a, you know, whatever, like when you love something you did individually, like for example, your guitar player, vocalist, whatever, sometimes you get kind of not protective, but like you love what you did.
Protective is absolutely the word.
Yeah, that's kind of that's kind of what happens. And again, I have a project that I do all by myself, and I'm somehow protective of, like, I'm the one doing everything, and I'm kind of experimenting that against myself. So like I can feel it, but like it's a different place, because after a while you kind of think about, as an ensemble, as everything together, does it serve the song? And it might sound stupid, but sometimes it's difficult to give up on something you build and you really like if it'll, like the fill you're talking about, if you're stoked about it, you feel, you put time, you're like, that's so sick, and then you gotta kind of, as you said, compromise and be like, okay, I'm gonna give up on it. Like, I feel like that's a difficult part for an artist to sometimes you're attached to what you created, but you're like, or the vocalist is like, oh, the vocals should be maybe louder there, but it's just because the person loves what he did
that's
there.
The classic. Everyone wants their own instrument louder in the mix.
Always. I was ready to burn entire cities to the ground for that fill.
Can Dane confirm this?
Yeah, he can. I know he can. He saw that group chat. Up until like I had to give in. I had to keep unlearning, or just rather remember the fact that, like, say if I were to play like a funk gig, I'm not going to be playing blast beats the whole time. Yeah. I'm just going to be playing your normal pocket groove, and things need to be tasteful in order for songs to hit better as a whole.
Yeah, it's all about serving the song. That's really what it comes down to. And ultimately choices need to be made, right? Like if it's, between a vocal hook or, a drum fill, like it can't be the two. You gotta pick at some point, and it is what it is, I guess. But I think it's good to have too many good ideas than not enough, I guess, in those sort of scenarios. At least you guys can choose the better of the two,
And also too much of something kind of ruins it sometimes. Like I'm a big fan of a good example I have. I'm a big fan of silence, right? Like you're during your break, for example, you're in a breakdown, and before repeating it, you just stop and you bring it back type thing. It's funny that I say that, and he kind of disappeared and came back at the exact same time. I was like, like it was constructing what I was saying as, thank you for that. But when you put like 15 of those, it doesn't hit anymore, because like it's just like there's too much. So there's also the part of just like not doing too much, kind of balancing everything, put in something, being able
tasteful, like Josh said, it's all about the tastefulness.
Exactly. Being able sometimes to just hold back with your instrument because you're aware that it puts in value someone else in your band, something like that. So like it's a beautiful thing. And I feel like since you guys are writing live and you're together, it's definitely something you can feel more and understand more. It's something that you cannot really describe, but it's something you feel in person. So there's definitely a different energy to
I also have a feeling that like bands that write together, like to Dane's point earlier, it's kind of like you want it to be everyone in the band like having their input. I think just that itself, everyone feels more invested afterwards also, like in playing the songs live, and even just like promoting the songs. It's like, hey, I actually worked on this, as opposed to a lot of bands that are kind of just, there's a songwriter and, people kind of contribute, but I don't think it's ever the same kind of feeling as being able to like, as a group of friends, all say that you guys all contributed like equally on something. I think there's a bonding experience in that as well, right?
Yeah, it's like a relationship too, right? It's like this band is not just about me. This band is not just about Josh. It's not just about Chris. It's not just about Austin. It's about all of us and what we create together, rather than just someone overshadowing everyone else with what they do. Because I see plenty of bands do that, and it's just kind of like cringe in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's like a lot of the time you can tell that it's kind of, I wouldn't say showing up, show off, but like there's a lot of bands that like each member is just like, I'll show all my skills on every song. So it's just, but I feel like we can feel that. And again, about the live thing, right? Writing together, I feel like one of the best feeling on the planet is feeling that something's happening, like when you look at someone else and you're like, try that again, and just like and
like goes off.
Mm-hmm. Oh my god, like this feeling of all looking at each other like, my god,
that was it. Yeah.
Josh and I will be playing something and I'll look at him, I'll be like
like the little China thing in the groove of No Mercy.
Yeah.
When I hit that offbeat China thing, you were looking at me like, ooh.
And it's magical because you don't even have to discuss it. It's just like, this goes in. This is like, it's not even like a conversation. It's like, we're clearly doing that. You're laughing because it's crazy heavy or it's cool. Like when you're all smiling, you just know something's happening. So that I'm saying it because I feel like that's another very important element of like bonding together as a band and creating something together. I feel like that's part of, like, it's a big part of the live writing together. So that's, I feel like
that's real.
Talk to us a little bit about, because we talked about different bands from Florida, but I guess just the Florida scene in general. We have these conversations a lot. I feel like, especially in the revival kind of scene, like I think deathcore in general, but especially with bands having like these kind of MySpace influences and stuff, there's a lot of that going down in Florida right now. I know you guys have played a lot with like, Body Snatcher Traders and like Prison and stuff like that. A lot of the down tempo stuff was kind of first in Florida and very influential in Florida as well. And then again, to kind of bring it back to Tactosa, like a bunch of members from that band are kind of like offshooted into different projects, whether it be Peacemaker or Tracheotomy and you and Heavy Hitter and stuff like that. How's the local scene for you guys and like, does it feel like there's some sort of community when it comes to like the deathcore scene in Florida? Or I know Florida is also like wide and big. It's not like everyone's in the same city per se, but
this is all Josh, because where I live, there's no scene. I live
Yeah, that's fair.
There's no scene.
So deathcore in Florida seems to be a more a universal thing, like a statewide thing. Mm-hmm. Every major scene in Florida has different genres that pop off. Orlando, where I'm at, is popping off with just about anything, whether it be Heavy Hitter. We have a big old school metalcore and screamo scene.
Yeah.
Same deal going down in South Florida in like Broward County. Mm-hmm. They also have a big like just regular hardcore punk scene, just the same as Tampa and Jacksonville do. Deathcore more so, whether it be from Tactosa and it's falling out and everybody else blooming into different projects. The same deal goes with Manticore.
Yeah,
I know y'all had Manticore on the podcast. Manticore, all those members, they all bloomed out.
Spawned like a million bands.
yes, exactly. That spawned scrams bands, hardcore bands, metalcore bands all over South Florida. Even like Tracheotomy. Mm-hmm. Even Manticore has a connection to Tracheotomy by way of Luca and stuff like that. But with it being within a specific confine of a city, I don't think is anywhere near possible. With the bands here in Florida holding down deathcore, like Peacemaker, us, if you dare say, Tracheotomy especially. I think Tracheotomy is holding it down like as best as possible. They scratch every itch for me because I love the genty breakdowns that deathcore had. That's a pretty hot take. I think Gent made deathcore better. We could get into that later.
Wow.
But, we can get into that later. But when those bands play cities around here in Florida, everybody goes there.
Yeah.
It's not just your own scene. I mean, sure, you may have a long drive if ever, but there's still going to be at least one person that probably made an over 2 or 3 hour drive to see one particular deathcore band play in a city that you're not from.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to hop into that gent made deathcore better talk.
I think that's the first time we hear it on the podcast. So that's interesting.
I feel like I know where you're coming from.
I'm going 10 toes down on this. I even talked to Simon about it.
Look, let me kind of like guesstimate here. Like you look at bands like Adalia, you look at bands like Silence. I think there were a lot of bands from that kind of era that brought bouncy back into deathcore. But I'd love to hear your take on it.
Okay, I'm gonna name 2 bands. I don't know if I consider this particular example as deathcore. Mm-hmm. The other one is absolutely a deathcore band. The Common Man's Collapse era, Veil of Maya, and all of Oceano. You can't say you like either one of those bands who laid the foundation for Chicago deathcore, especially by way they structured and wrote their breakdowns, and not think Gent made deathcore better.
Fair enough.
Look at Contagion. Look at Persuasive Oppression. Look at the ending breakdown of Remnants of Flame. Look at the entire record that Veil of Maya wrote. Even though they're a full-on Gent band, which I love the material they're writing now, what they had back in 2007 was absolutely undefeated. There are honorable mentions as well, like 2012, like Winds of Plague era. That was amazing stuff. Do y'all remember this band Rooks?
Rooks is one of my favorite, most underrated.
Dude,
I had Amachi is the name of one of the songs on like that first like 3-song EP thing. I had the intro to that song as my ringtone for the longest time because it's just a dude yelling on top of a drum beat and me being an edgy fucking teenager being like, this is gonna be my ringtone. Dude, that band was so fucking good, man.
I re-listened to Rooks in having a huge like conversation on Twitter about it. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my God, I haven't listened to Rooks in literal eons.
Yeah.
This only solidifies the point. I think with it added creativity, versatility, and I say a less monotonous tone in the way breakdowns were made.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but I think we're talking about different things though, because when we were having these conversation about Gent, we're specifically more talking about when everything became Gent, when every single band would release just pakatang clang clang clang, and it was like the whole thing. But if we go back, you talked about Veil of Maya. This freaking album is still one of the best thing I've ever heard in my entire life. And no one really took that and kind of
evolved with it.
Not really, like, because Veil of Maya moved on right after that and stuff like that. So I would be curious to see that. But there was also heavy gent. I called it like that, like monsters and like structures and stuff like that. This kind of gent is crazy. And there
was a lot of that early on in gent. Like there was a ton of those kind of bands, and those bands were always so even like early like Contortionists and stuff like that. Like there was like some. It was deathcore, but they're like clearly like, I love the balloons, Yen.
Okay, can someone just explain to me why exactly? That's what I got. Like, I do understand if you do that and there's like something, but why like freaking like I don't understand. I was talking and pointing, and there's just like, oh, okay, here's balloons or
maybe it's
something.
the anniversary of one of those albums behind you, and Instagram picked it up.
Who knows?
Probably. But yeah, Contagion, dude, like one of my first bands was called Contagion because of that album.
Wow.
I understand what you mean because there was a bounciness that would like, there's a song, never remember because I'm terrible with names, but like Viral Reanimation. Okay, and the breakdown goes it's so freaking good and
so good.
This kind of breakdown is very underrated and still people don't do it really like they did. So I agree with you that the bounciness and this kind of like new energy definitely brings, as opposed to the classic breakdowns we had back in the days, which was
I think
more
people ran out of patterns to do, man. I think that's what it came down
exactly
to.
It.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
Definitely. Like we had too many of those. It was every single breakdown, like, oh, the breakdown's coming. Like it was pretty much, and I still like it, to be honest. I like it. I'm not saying it's bad, but
I go back to that stuff and I have a hard time with it. I feel some of those breakdowns just don't feel heavy anymore because we've gotten so used to like just a little bit more complex and more nuanced of a breakdown, you know,
with grooves and it's fun also. Like I don't know if you guys, because I love also like metalcore, like old school, like old Parkway Drive, like Deep Blue and August Burns Red stuff and whatever.
Absolutely.
But they were good to kind of make a cool pattern that ends with something, like having little things giving personality to the breakdown was really a game changer, I feel like.
Oh, right.
Also,
Right. People not just doing the open notes anymore, like actually adding notes and other stuff. Yeah.
More palm mutes, bends, all that other stuff.
Yeah. I'm a sucker for a good bend, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. So, I'd like to shout out you because you mentioned old school metalcore. Our bassist Chris, he's in the chat. He has a side project called With Paper Wings.
Oh, dude,
amazing Orlando metalcore. If anybody in that chat doesn't know, spin their promo or their demo right now. It's prime.
Did they not just come out or with something, or it's coming out like tomorrow, something like that? I
think they have a new single coming out in a few days or something, because they're a band signed to the coming Strife Records.
Yeah, which
I'm pretty sure is out of the UK. Huge comp coming out soon, but otherwise they are the forefront of I would say America's forefront of old school metalcore.
Again, Florida always first. Always doing it first. People catch up later on, but Florida really has like a thing for kind of like It's weird to even say pioneer because a lot of this stuff is like a kind of throwback genres, but to kind of get a new wave of something going. The comp dropped today. Okay, that's it. I kept seeing promo for it earlier, so that's what I was wondering. Yeah, Balmora is a great example of like that kind of old school vibe too. That are doing it in a big way. They're doing like pretty cool tours and stuff too. They're picking up a lot of traction.
Dude, their tour right now is gigantic.
Who are they out with right now?
I believe it's with Stab Wounds, Upon Stone, Tribal Gaze. It's like a huge lineup where like different bands are hopping on different dates, but I think it's like a 200 Stab Wounds headliner or something.
Yeah. Sick. Oh, that's cool. You guys played Big Texas Metal Fest, right?
Yes, we did.
How
that's some lore.
Oh, okay, let's hear it. What's the lore?
I played that show. I think it was like 107 degrees out with a fever. It was one of the worst days of my life. Although the performance ended up being really solid. Oh my God.
How did you feel when you were about to start feeling like that? Like you're about to start and you feel like that. Did you just black out? Like what happened?
It was just a matter of like, I had to treat it as a mental thing. It's just another Tuesday. It's just, it just so happens to be the biggest show you've ever played. Well, you got to treat it just as another You have to treat it as another Tuesday. There's no other way about it. If you feel like you're going to throw up, do it. You're going to keep playing the damn drums. Every attempt at like rehydration I felt was like for nothing. It was unbearable.
He had the Gatorade IV beside the drum kit.
We were doing the Pedialytes.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I felt like that didn't work, but by the end of the day it's still like 90 degrees at night. Dude, it was unreal. The show was great. We played to I think about like 700 on the side stage, we did share the stage. Shout out Last 10 Seconds of Life. Shout out Signs of the Swarm.
Gang.
Notable acts that we love to see. They put on shows.
You guys were playing the same day as All Shall Perish, right?
Yes, dude.
Yeah, you guys get to catch that?
Say again?
Did you guys get to catch All Shall Perish?
Yes, we did. Now, back to what I said, like I was a very late bloomer. even when I just started getting into deathcore, I wasn't listening to bands like As Blood Runs Black, All Shall Perish. I wasn't listening to older bands like that. So seeing that All Shall Perish performance was very much my first time getting into any of it, and it was magical.
Hell yeah! I'm sure just the crowd experience. Yeah, I'm sure some of the just being there with the crowd that's anticipating must have been just an energy about it, right?
Oh yeah, dude. It was just a bunch of OGs that like felt like they were kids again. That's what it felt like, because just a bunch of OGs with All Shall Perish shirts, or just like, you know, any shirt for that matter. But seeing a band that was their favorite back in the day was like, there's an unmatched energy that they brought even to people that had never listened before.
I think that
just like myself,
their crowd was like 1,500 people or something like that.
Sick.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a shame. And by the way, you mentioned Sign of the Swarm. I just want to say, like, every single performance that I see or whatever, like, not to disrespect, like, the whole band is sick, but Dave, like, their singer, like, he's like a performer, like the moves, the way he's like driving, it reminds me of, like, not to compare him, but like I love Emure personally, and I love like how Frankie is, like, you know, kind of just like moving during things. Like, it reminds me of that bounciness and that, you know, they're killing it. Like, Signs of the Swarm are definitely like on the rise right now. That's how it feels from my standpoint. Like, more and more people are like, I feel like in a few years are going to talk about it. They're just going to be like, you know, here, like, you're just like, they keep rising. It's crazy.
Little fun fact, I actually acted in their music video for Amongst the Low and Empty.
Oh, really?
What?
Wait, what?
Yeah. Guy with the long hair at the end of the table.
Oh,
really?
Shit! Because I was thinking about it, there's not many like actors. It's like weirdly, I guess no pun intended, is fairly empty. Like, it's very there's not much going on outside of the performance in that clip. So I was like, wait, oh, but okay, cool. How'd that happen?
Awesome.
What, they happen to need someone you were around? Like,
so Joey Durango directed that video, and he directed our first music video for Suspect. And I have my college degree in acting and theater and shit. So I told Joey, I was like, hey, if you ever need anyone, let me know. And he hit me up with that. And I was in Lorna Shore's music video for Return to Nothingness.
that's sick. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I forgot about that one.
That was the first one Joey got me in, but I was only on that one on screen for like 20 seconds, and it was really short. I was the guy like chasing the detective with the guns and shit.
Yeah.
That's awesome, dude.
Huh. Because he's not local to Florida, is he?
Yeah, he is. He's in Sarasota, I believe.
Oh, I didn't know that. I don't know why. I thought he was higher up on the East Coast.
Yeah.
And you're talking again. We're talking about, not to still shout out Signs of the Swarm, but Amongst the Low and Empty, to me, is probably one of the best modern deathcore songs made. Like, easily, like, it could win a prize of like modern deathcore.
That intro breakdown furthers my point about the gem thing, anyways. Too. Sorry to get back on that one too.
Oh yeah, no, but they did it very well. Like,
oh my god, it's unreal. It's unforgettable, that breakdown.
Really, and it stays in your head too.
It's a catchy song.
Yeah, it's amazing.
When I made a video about them, I had that for weeks. Like, I couldn't just, it was always there all the time. Like, when I do a video, I listen to it so much. On top of that, like, I always had like a monster, and I have to like his voice, everything. So that's kind of when you know if you did something right. Like, if things you did is like they're all memorable and it sticks in your head, usually you got something. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You know, right. So
talking about memorable. Someone in the Instagram was requesting us to talk about Christcore.
Oh yes.
Oh man. This is about to get crazy.
Let's get into it. Let's get into it, because I feel like I think it's a good segue, because I do think a lot of the Christian bands were really, really good at having good vocal hooks and like just parts that were like chants or like, you know, all this
crazy
sort of
live.
Shout out Impending Doom if we're talking about deathcore. This is a deathcore podcast, for Christ's sake, pun intended.
Shout out Impending Doom.
Shout out them still going strong, man. Like they're wrapping up an album right now. Like they've been putting out like EPs and stuff in the past few years. Like, dude, and they keep getting heavier. People are sleeping on the more recent Impending Doom. The last two releases they put out,
they dropped like a few years ago. It's
so
stupid.
heavy. It's so fucking heavy. I've always loved them for being heavy and having the heaviest fucking breakdowns, but I feel like people don't give enough credit to their more recent stuff. I don't know why people aren't listening to it. Maybe it's the promo. Maybe it's, I don't know, people like kind of don't expect them to still be around. But they're still fucking killing it. I saw some live videos too of them like a month or two ago, and it was just like such a good fucking live band.
And we're talking also about being relevant and stuff. I don't know if you guys remember that. And you were talking about the gen thing. Impending Doom, in my opinion, did the best gent riff, and it's in More Than Conqueror. Everything stops and
yeah, dude. Yeah, that's goated. That's goated.
To this day, best like gent bouncy thing I've heard in my. It takes everything in my power. I'm never gonna rip off a riff, but if I would, it would that probably. And it's so I just can't do that because I'm like, it's not something you can do. But even now, you hear it 50 billion times, still hits, still good, and you're still. So like, I want to commend them on that because they did it quite kind of early in that. You know what I mean? Like they did it. I don't remember exactly when, but it was fairly early.
And people didn't necessarily fuck with it at first either. I remember it being kind of contentious when that specific album came out. I know a lot of people were kind of like, I remember people saying they were kind of like selling out, and it's so crazy to look back on and to like, now we're just used to it. Like we've heard these types of songs over and over again. So it's not weird, but I think that like because they had a pretty clean like production too. And I don't know, those sorts of riffs. I think they had a lot of songs that were like, I don't know, you could maybe consider some of the like vocal hooks, like some of the song names that would be played like over and over and over again within a song were like kind of cheesy, but like, dude, it always hit. Like it always hit so fucking hard.
And it was still heavy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it's just, it's one of those things. If you're
shit. Okay. He's a real one. I see.
There's my boys.
It's like sometimes you're early, sometimes you're doomed. I guess, but because you're early with what you do, right? Like I remember people hating on Immure, but they were sick and they were just like early with kind of the, they were already doing the, I don't know, like the new metal, bouncy kind of deathcore, metalcore type thing. And I remember the hate they had because it was like different, but you look at them now and all these people hating them, they're like, oh yeah, you're sick. Like it's sometimes it takes a long time for them to like to come around and be like, oh shit, they were
actually cool. Good back then.
Maybe Impending Doom, we're just gonna see them after, I don't know when, but they're just gonna have like their moment as well because they've always been.
Yeah, but I think Impending Doom are kind of in a legacy status at this point.
Yeah, they're like a legacy act. They rarely tour anyways.
Exactly, right? Yeah. Like they're not one of those bands that's going to come out with like, even if they did have, let's say, the next Lorna Shore-esque viral moment in the world, they still wouldn't be like aiming for touring full time and doing all these things. So I think that's kind of what stops them at this point from that sort of stuff, but it still doesn't stop them from, at least putting out great music. They're going out they're doing a tour in not too long. So they're doing some touring, but I'm pretty sure the goal isn't to do it like full time or anything. I think most of those guys.
Yeah. With War of Ages, I think we're on tour when they hit Tampa, and I'm so mad that I can't be able to see.
I'm so sad that I'm missing that.
So
otherwise, Doom played Big Texas Metal Fest the day before we were supposed to play it, and I was hoping that we got to play the same day.
Right, because initially there wasn't announced like what bands on what days kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I found out bass player, and I was like, "What day are you playing?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm playing the day before you or whatever." And it was I was just so sad.
So
I wouldn't.
Oh, go for it, Josh.
I was gonna to carry on with the Christcore thing before segueing into something else.
No, I was gonna bring it back to that. So yeah, you're good.
Oh, I wouldn't be into any of this if it wasn't for Christcore. 10 years ago, 10 years. I mean, I will say I still believe in God, not nearly as much as I used to be. But when I was, I realized that my taste in music, which went from like 80s bands and classic rock to grunge, I started realizing that everything I was listening to kept getting heavier and heavier. So I decided some December night in 2015, does Christian metal exist? And I just found Impending Doom, For Today, and a bunch of like heavy metal.
For Today, man.
Yeah, dude. So I found a bunch of these bands, and that even to this day, whether it be records like For Today's Ecclesia, or all the older Impending Doom records, a lot of those records shaped what I love about deathcore or just heavy music as a whole. Like whether it be just like 16 bar China breakdowns, which we definitely pulled a lot of that in this record, especially in the new song. The typical deathcore blast beat. It's like probably my favorite thing ever to play on a drum kit. Yeah, dude, I'm forever indebted to Christcore. I still visit those records every once in a while just for pure nostalgia, even in the midst of its decline, more or less, because bands are becoming more accessible, either dropping the Christian label, making it still quality music.
Right.
It's an amazing thing I still hold on to a lot.
A good point with the breakdowns too. You know what I mean? Like the long, just China cool patterns. Like For Today was good with that. Like just letting the breakdown. And we were talking about interesting patterns. For Today would do these. I remember like We're Not Fearless. Like those are my favorite because I love deathcore, but I've noticed over the years that I'm more of a metalcore breakdown dude. Like it's like August Burns Reds are incredible with those breakdowns.
Messengers is my favorite metalcore record of all time. I get it, dude.
It's just like because I want to be like that, and in deathcore very often is more of a vocal fest. Like it's more like just like it's cool, but like I love with a six pounder here, just like mushing breakdown to me is that,
that's
and
where it's at.
Christcore was, for that was just perfect for that.
Going back to like what earlier when you guys said we're talking about like influences, I'm not really like a deathcore guy. I didn't really get into deathcore until like the last couple of years because of Heavy Hitter. I'm a Christcore guy. Like I'm the Christian who's like, I couldn't go to a show unless it was a Christian band. Like, For Today was my first show. Devil Wears Prada.
Hell yeah.
I like that's all I listen to. I still listen to it today because it's such good music.
They were writing better riffs than some of the secular bands. What?
That's what I'm saying, bro. Are you kidding me? Like the dude's sweeping for like 2 minutes straight. But my point is that like all my influence comes from like Gideon, old school Gideon, O Sleeper, Impending Doom, Cultist, 1,000 Times Repent, just all these
hell yeah,
insane bands.
Yeah, and you might have noticed there is Plague from the Divorce Spread on my wall. You don't see the Plague. This was my entry in the metalcore world. Prior to that, it was more like Slipknot, Linkin Park, these kinds of things. I think we all kind of had this similar kind of entry. But when I heard, I'm always going to remember talking about Christcore, the Cornerstone 2006, the Divorce Spread infamous video that the keyboardist looks like he's going to like kill someone. I don't know what he's doing. He's just like throwing himself everywhere. Like he's mushing on his keyboard, basically. We need to bring that back, by the way. But it was so sick and crazy. And I'm always going to remember because my brain was like, yeah, it's creamy. I was like trying to wrap my head around like, oh my God, it's like, it's heavier. And when I heard freaking Plague changed my entire trajectory and life. That album was just like super sick. And then I went into deathcore, and when I heard that, like the Chelsea Green EP changed my entire life to another step. But in Christcore, I feel like for a lot of people, it was the entry in that world, you know, like the Divorce Preda, and like I would say I would classify Underoath in that as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah.
Old Underoath.
Because old Underoath was heavier than what people remember. Like old Underoath was fairly heavy. Like we're talking Norma Jean and all those, you know what I mean? Like
not many people remember when they wrote Active Depression. Not many people remember that.
Those riffs, they legit wrote slam parts. Like they had like it was very heavy and different. That's personally my favorite Underoath, even if I was full on Reinventing Your Exit and like, you know what I mean? I wasn't emo kid, so obviously I love all that stuff. But oh dude.
Album of the Eon.
Dude, it was but yeah, so Christcore played, I feel like a big, even later on, I mean, when we had like more goofy bands like Attack and stuff like that, like it was always, because I know they changed. At first it was kind of a Christian band and like things changed or whatever, but like that era of just like Christcore was the introduction for so many people. I don't feel like we would have the same scene today without it. Seriously, like that's how big.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it. Don, how do you feel about that?
Well, do we? No, I'm just curious. Like, do we feel like, because I feel like there was an era where, you know, we would talk about Christcore and Christian deathcore and Christian metalcore. Like those were terms that were thrown around a lot to kind of like separated them from your like the rest of deathcore and the rest of metalcore, right? And I don't feel like we see as much of that today. But I don't think that's necessarily because there's like less Christians in metal, right? Like, I don't think that's necessarily the case. What do you guys think kind of changes there? Like, is it just people don't want to use it as a label? Like it doesn't need to be separate, or like, do you guys have any thoughts on that?
I think that can hold some value to it.
Yeah, I think people don't want to do the label thing. It's like saying someone's a Christian rapper. You know what I mean? It's like, you're cutting yourself off to
accessibility
to a certain audience group. It's like, because the second someone hears Christian deathcore, Christian this, they're automatically not going to listen to it because of like religious trauma or just, you know, whatever they're going through in their life with, you know, Christ. But like Josh and I, for example, like I'm a hardcore Christian, but we play in a secular band. You know, that doesn't define me.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't define my faith, but I'm also not going to sit there and be like, you know, repent and turn to Christ.
Yeah, it's another level of things. I don't know what you guys think, but I think also what contributed to less and less people saying it is tons of bands did it, but it wasn't true. Like, and it was revealed later on.
They would like, and then just kind of sell out. And because I feel like Christian core, like Christcore bands got popular really fast because people really wanted to see Christian metal. Yeah. And then they did it for that clout. And then they're like, haha, just kidding. Like, fuck you guys.
It's kind of crazy too, how it really was kind of like a ticket to some sort of fame or some sort of fan base by simply being, right? Like just by kind of existing. You know, it's kind of crazy that on one side it's like, it's because those bands resonated with people. Like there's value in that. It's not for nothing. It's just, I don't know. I just think it's interesting to see how kind of like the times have changed with that sort of stuff, because it was such a big part of the culture back then. And you know, always had, I think specifically when you talk about metalcore and then even more so deathcore, right? Like there was always something, I guess, kind of like off-putting or weird about, like, you know, a lot of deathcore bands inherently were like anti-God. Like that was a part of a lot of the imagery. So I also think, you know, that's maybe it hasn't really gone, that part hasn't really gone away, right? And I think maybe defining your band as a Christian deathcore band would kind of like make it easier for people to understand, like, hey, we're not talking about that sort of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But you've heard all the stories of, you know, bands not getting along because of, you know, they play the same style of music, but because of their beliefs and stuff like that. And it's, I don't know, it's I don't think it's as much like that anymore. I think for the better, but it's interesting to look back on, you know, because it was such a big focus back then.
But I feel like it was cool also on the other side, like personally, as someone who never, like, I never resonated. Like, we have these conversations on the podcast because, like, I personally believe in God and stuff like that. I won't say I'm Christian because I'm more of the spiritual person who can talk for an hour about we chose this life as a soul. And like, I'm this annoying person who's just like, who loves talking about that stuff. And like, to me, it's like, it's a big GTA game life kind of thing. But at the same time, I never wanted to have, like, you know, devil, Satan stuff on me and stuff like that. I'm just like, to me, it was always on the side of like, you're angry and you're putting it on God. You're mad, you're upset in your life, and you put it on like, I'm mad at God. Like, that's how I always saw it. No disrespect to people. That's how I always saw it. You're upset, you put it on God, you're mad.
Yeah.
Because of things that happen, you know. But the side that I thought was always cool was some bands like For Today who kind of use the power of God thing, like not being afraid and kind of fighting back. I feel like that worked better in metal, you know what I mean, as opposed to do like a chorus who's like, geez, you know what I mean, like it's more the anger of God feels better to me, made more sense in metal than just like, you know what I mean, like
other styles of music.
I think even go ahead.
Like brutal, man, like the war and, you know, the wrath of God is no joke. And like biblically, it's like, it's metal.
Yeah. A lot of the Bible is metal as fuck. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Seriously. So it's like, I feel like for a lot of people, it was like Christcore basically welcomed a lot of people who maybe would have never been attracted to metal otherwise. I feel like that's what happened, because so many people were just like, and sometimes it's, you know, you're young, your parents are just like, you know what I mean? Like, there was so many stuff like that. I had a friend his parents were like super, you know, going to church, stuff like that. They would only be allowed to, you know what I mean, like Christian bands only. So they were spread out, stuff like it was real. So okay, so for him, it was cool for us as well, right? Because he could come to the shows seeing those bands. So it was welcoming people that otherwise maybe, you know, would have never been part of it. So it was cool to see. Like, I feel like that definitely contributed to more people being open-minded about it. So,
yeah, I agree.
That's how I see it.
It was up until I discovered Oceano when I was like big on Christcore only that I was like, okay, maybe these other bands
too heavy. This is too heavy to not listen to.
yeah, dude. It all rules.
Well, you were talking earlier about vibe, right? Like, we were talking about taking it as a vibe. I feel like that's the same thing, right? Because I think you guys can relate with me on that. You can also appreciate a band that maybe you would never write those lyrics, or it's not like resonating, but for what it is, for the band, for like the vibe, the music, you can also just take it as a vibe. At least I'm talking for myself, but for me, that's kind of what I do. You know what I mean? Like,
take it for its artistic value.
Yes. Like watching an horror movie type thing, right? Yeah. It's when you watch an horror movie, well, hopefully you don't want to do what you see in the movies, but it's kind of the same thing, right? You can listen to songs, stuff like that. When I was younger, I had maybe a little harder time to do that, but now that's kind of what I do. So I guess it's kind of the same thing for you guys. You were talking about Oceano, so that's kind of what you did, just like taking the music for what it is, I guess.
Well, yeah. There's a point where I kind of stop and I'm like, all right, I can't listen to this, just because sometimes it'll just be like too much. Like the bands are all like, "Hail Satan, Lucifer." Yeah. Like, I'm just like, okay, like I get it, you know, more power to you. But there's a certain point where I'm just like, all right, I'm not going to listen to it. Yeah. But for the most part, I like most stuff.
Okay, yeah, it's kind of
there's there's a lot of music that, you know, you talk about vibe, but there is something to be said about like resonating with what you're listening to also, right? Like I mean I'm personally not of any like religious belief, but there's outside of that topics and things that I don't care to listen to because of the content of the lyrics, right? Like it doesn't even have to do necessarily with religion. It's just, I think people resonate with different things and don't resonate with certain other things. And that's just how we consume music. Right. But, yeah, that's super interesting to hear. I love talking about this sort of stuff because I feel like, again, right, like it was such a big focus back in the day, but I don't feel like this sort of stuff is talked about as much anymore, especially, and I mean, this is no dig on anyone doing it, but outside of the traditional like religious spaces, like I feel like we have the same thing in podcasts. Even there's like, you know, religious specific podcasts and these things and these topics what might be discussed there, but not so much outside of that. So I feel like it's important to have these discussions just because it's just different perspectives. I don't know. I think it's super interesting to hear about again, especially because it was such a big part of our scene, you know? So thank you guys for sharing. It's super cool.
It's great to have a scene where all walks of life, all different like faiths and all that still come together for deathcore. Whether it be a Christian deathcore band or not, there's still that intermingling of believers who still listen to Suicide Silence that they love unanswered for some odd reason. Like myself, that song bangs. I don't care about the lyrics. Like that the intermingling of all that business just for the sake of music. It's what makes music so powerful.
Right. Yeah, I feel like you're right. And again, depends on your perspective, right? With time, and especially as I don't want to talk for all Christians or whatever. And again, I'm personally not, but how I would see it is more as opposed to see it, you know, people who talks about Satan and whatever, instead of seeing them as enemies or something, it's more about seeing them as like, they're upset about certain things. You know what I mean? They're mad, they're suffering. Because let's be real. It's very rare that someone who went through nothing is going to be interested in someone yelling in a mic for hours. I feel like we all
we all have baggage.
Like, some we're definitely. I mean, look at me. Like we're definitely a bit weird if we were intrigued to that as and I feel like what we share in metal is that like we without speaking about it, we kind of know that everybody kind of went through stuff or whatever. At the very least,
it's hurting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we all don't express it the same way. And some people, for them, it's like when they go through something very tragic, let's be real. There's a lot of like very difficult stuff. We're talking, you know, sickness, stuff like that. So like for them, sometimes just the anger kind of lash out on just like, you know, being mad at the creator, just be like, boom. So it's fully understandable. We're talking about metal here, right? So it's dark, it's darkness and stuff like that. So some of it's going to be fictional. Some of people are just going to be releasing their anger. But I feel like now maybe it's more open on that. Like, I feel like maybe so people just see it as like, okay, they're expressing themselves in music, as opposed to back in the days, it was more of a controversial thing. I remember people being really upset by some lyrics and stuff like that. I don't see that. Really?
I mean, look, we just had controversies over Cannibal Corpse lyrics like a couple of weeks ago. So, you know, still some of it going on. But
I thought it was a joke. Yeah. I thought it wasn't real. Is it? It's real. It happened.
Yeah,
it was really controversial.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought it was a joke, like a meme type thing. I didn't think it was.
I mean, clearly people who don't listen to metal, really, right? Like, I think that often happens when people are kind of from the outside looking into something that they don't necessarily understand. But
yeah, the point I would make is more like they're doing it for like 30 years. So where exactly were you during that? It's like if I'm shocked right now by The Exorcist, I'm like, who did that? What happened? Like, I mean, it's super old. Like, where the hell were you? I mean, Cannibal Corpse started with those lyrics, correct me if I'm wrong. So so when I hear those things, I'm like, well, it's not new, you know, like they always, it's their thing. They even talked about it in interviews, you know, they had to explain that they don't do their lyrics.
Of that, yeah.
Like, it's so stupid that they have to even say that. Like, we don't actually do these things. It's fictional. It's like a movie.
Unless it's a black metal band, then they do it.
Oh,
all right.
shit.
Yeah.
That's the part I don't. We were talking about a vibe. That's where I don't vibe personally. I'm like, nope, not my thing. So.
Well, guys, thank you guys so much for doing this. This was kind of a long awaited talk with you guys. So I'm happy we got to do it with so much on the horizon for you guys. Glad we got to discuss and get the tech issues out of the way so we can actually get to talking. We made it work. We made it work.
It worked.
So I appreciate you guys taking the time to do this. And do you guys have? I'd love to let you guys kind of. Shout out anything you guys have going on. Obviously, we talked about a bunch of stuff, but if you guys want to shout out where we can find you and anything that's coming up for you guys, we'd love to give the floor to you guys.
Josh?
At heavyhitter FL, at D Leprich, LOEPRICH. My Instagram handle is visceralxns. That's where you could find us all. Otherwise, we're probably tagged on like some heavy hitter posts every once in a while. Again, we're going to be on the road with Carnifex, Cryptopsy, Mental Cruelty, and Organectomy, all the way from New Zealand.
Huge.
For this tour throughout the whole
Mental
United
Cruelty, Germany,
and Canada.
Yeah.
Are y'all out of Montreal or elsewhere?
We're Montreal-ish, both of us.
Montreal. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I hope we can cross paths at a show if y'all ever hit it.
Yes, sir.
Dude, that's gonna be awesome. And people in the chat, anybody listening to this, what they're about to release is just like absolutely incredible.
Boy.
Nobody's ready.
Step breakdown.
The single was just the beginning.
Anger in your face type thing.
Scream no mercy, no remorse.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, thank you guys so much again, and we'll probably see you guys in October. So we'll keep in touch.
Oh yeah, honor and privilege, brothers.
All right. Have a great day, guys.
Oh yeah, peace.
God bless. Right.
Bye.